Blood soaked through his tactical vest as James cradled the trembling med student in his arms, debris raining around them. "Stay with me," he whispered, knowing this hostage would haunt him forever. 7 years later, Dr. Olivia Pierce stared down at her emergency patient. The same piercing blue eyes now closing beneath her scalpel. Boston Memorial Hospital's fluorescent lights cast harsh shadows across the trauma wing as Dr. Olivia Pierce moved with practiced efficiency between patients. At 32, she was one of the youngest trauma surgeons on staff, her reputation built on steady hands and split-second decisions that saved lives when others might hesitate. Tonight marked her 5th consecutive 12-hour shift, voluntarily taken, as were most of her extended hours. In the momentary quiet of the staff lounge, Olivia sipped lukewarm coffee while reviewing patient files on her tablet. A text message illuminated her phone screen. "Dinner Sunday? Bringing neighbor Steve." Olivia sighed, deleted the message without responding. Her mother's matchmaking attempts had become predictable since Olivia's 3-year relationship dissolved last winter, another casualty of her demanding schedule, and what her ex had called her emotional unavailability. The truth that Olivia rarely admitted, even to herself, was that she preferred the controlled chaos of the emergency room over the unpredictability of personal relationships. At least in the ER, problems had solutions. Traumatic injuries followed protocols, required specific interventions. People were messier, their needs less clearly defined, their reactions impossible to anticipate with surgical precision. Her apartment reflected this preference for control. Minimalist decor, bare walls, no photographs. Only her bookshelf suggested permanence. Medical journals alongside dog-eared poetry collections she'd carried since college. It wasn't that she disliked connection. Rather, she'd learned to compartmentalize it, keeping it safely contained like a volatile substance that required careful handling. Her colleagues knew fragments of Olivia. Brilliant student, completed residency in record time, inexplicably refused certain emergency training scenarios involving hostage situations. Nobody knew about the nightmares that still occasionally woke her. Fragments of glass, blood on concrete floors, and a calm voice telling her to stay alive. Across town, SWAT Commander James Harrington sat at his kitchen table, patiently helping his 7-year-old daughter Emma with her math homework. At 38, the lines around his eyes had deepened, partly from the stress of his profession, but mostly from 3 years of single parenthood following his wife's death from aggressive breast cancer. "Dad, you're not even listening," Emma complained, noticing his attention drift toward the window, a habit developed from years of hypervigilance in tactical situations. "Sorry, sweetheart." James refocused, pointing to the fraction worksheet. "Let's try this one again." His phone vibrated against the table. Commander Reynolds requesting his presence for tomorrow's hostage negotiation training exercise. James's jaw tightened imperceptibly as he weighed the request against Emma's science fair scheduled for the same afternoon. Since losing Lisa, these calculations consumed him, balancing duty with being physically present for Emma, trying to be both parents at once. Their home contained evidence of a man learning to navigate unfamiliar territory. A calendar meticulously organized with Emma's activities, a refrigerator covered with artwork, and Emma's current hairstyle. An awkwardly executed braid that had taken him 40 minutes of YouTube tutorials to master that morning. The members of his SWAT team respected his strategic brilliance, but had noticed his increased caution since becoming a widower. The once impulsive lieutenant now calculated every risk, having learned the hard way that some battles, like his wife's illness, couldn't be won through tactical superiority or sheer determination. The scar across his abdomen from a knife wound taken during a hostage extraction 5 years ago served as a constant reminder of his mortality and responsibility to return home to Emma. Both Olivia and James inhabited worlds where they exercised complete control professionally, while their personal lives remained carefully compartmentalized. Their loneliness a choice disguised as necessity. The emergency department erupted into controlled chaos as multiple trauma victims arrived from a 5-car pileup on the interstate. Olivia efficiently triaged, directing residents and nurses with clear commands, until a commotion at the ambulance bay drew her attention. "And fine, help them first," insisted a deep voice, firm despite its strain. Through the sliding doors, Olivia spotted a broad-shouldered man standing beside a gurney where a small girl lay, pale and frightened, a gash visible on her forehead. The man wore civilian clothes, though a tactical jacket was partially visible beneath his coat, and blood seeped through his sleeve from what appeared to be a deep laceration. "Sir, you need medical attention," a young intern argued, trying to guide him toward a treatment area. "My daughter first," he replied, with the natural authority of someone accustomed to command. Olivia approached quickly, assessing both patients with a practiced glance. "Room 3 for the child, 4 for him," she directed the nurses, then turned to the man. "Both will be seen immediately." When the man attempted to follow his daughter's gurney, Olivia stepped deliberately into his path. Despite being nearly a foot shorter, her authority was absolute within these walls. "Sir, you're losing blood. Let us help both of you." "I need to stay with her," he insisted, swaying slightly despite his effort to appear steady. "You need to be conscious for her," Olivia countered, her tone leaving no room for argument. "Trust my team. I promise we'll take excellent care of your daughter." Something in her voice, confident yet compassionate, made the man hesitate. Their eyes met briefly, a flash of something like recognition crossing his face, that Olivia missed entirely as she directed a nurse to escort him to treatment. While examining the girl's relatively minor injuries, Olivia noticed her anxiety. "Your dad will be fine," she reassured, applying butterfly bandages with gentle precision. "I'm Dr. Pierce. What's your name?" "Emma," the girl answered, her eyes tracking every movement of Olivia's hands. "Are you going to give me stitches?" "Not today. These special bandages will hold everything together while you heal," Olivia explained. "You were very brave in that ambulance." "He's always taking care of everybody else," Emma confided unexpectedly. "At work, at home, everywhere." "What does your dad do?" Olivia asked casually, preparing a sterile dressing. "Alt stops bad guys," Emma said with unmistakable pride. "He's super brave." Later, when Olivia entered the man's treatment room, she found him attempting to check himself out, against medical advice, his paperwork half completed. The tension between them was immediate. Olivia, seeing another stubborn alpha male undermining medical expertise, James viewing her as an obstacle between him and his daughter. "Your daughter needs you healthy," Olivia stated flatly, examining his laceration. "This needs proper suturing." "I've had worse," he dismissed, though his complexion had paled noticeably. "Congratulations," she responded dryly, preparing the suture kit. "That doesn't make this any less serious." As she worked, her efficiency impressed him, despite his frustration. Her hands moved with practiced precision, reminding him of his team's bomb technician, deliberate, focused, no wasted motion. "Military training?" he asked, noticing her methodical approach. "No," she answered curtly, uncomfortable with personal questions while working. When she mentioned Emma would need follow-up care, James checked his watch reflexively, mentally calculating how to manage this with tomorrow's training exercise and Emma's science fair. Olivia misinterpreted this as impatience rather than parental logistics. "Your wound needs proper care too, unless you want an infection that lands you back here for IV antibiotics." "I can handle it," he responded automatically. "Of course you can," Olivia muttered, finishing the bandaging with perhaps more pressure than strictly necessary. "Men like you always can." "Men like me?" James raised an eyebrow, genuinely curious despite his discomfort. "The ones who think vulnerability is weakness," she clarified, misreading his military bearing as machismo rather than responsibility. James stiffened, remembering the endless nights holding his wife's hand through chemotherapy, the vulnerability that didn't save her. "You don't know anything about me, doctor." Their interaction ended with mutual misconceptions, Olivia seeing a reckless man who wouldn't follow medical advice, James seeing a judgmental physician who made assumptions without context. Neither recognized the other's carefully constructed defenses against loss. 3 weeks later, Boston Memorial hosted a mandatory emergency response training for staff. Olivia attempted to excuse herself, citing scheduled surgeries, but her chief was adamant. All trauma surgeons must participate in this mass casualty simulation, designed to improve coordination between medical personnel and emergency responders. Her stomach tightened when she saw tactical vehicles in the hospital parking lot. Breathing exercises kept the anxiety at bay as she approached the auditorium, freezing momentarily at the sight of James in full tactical gear, addressing the medical staff at the front of the room. The overhead lights caught the silver commander's insignia on his uniform. Their eyes met briefly before Olivia took a seat in the back row. James continued his briefing on coordinating emergency services with hospital response, his authoritative presence commanding respect from even the most senior physicians. Today's simulation will pair medical personnel with tactical team members, he explained. You'll navigate scenarios requiring both skill sets to successfully treat patients while maintaining safety protocols. When teams were assigned, Olivia found herself paired with James, an administrative coincidence neither welcomed. Their first scenario, extracting and treating an injured victim from an unstable environment while dealing with potential threats. I can switch partners if this is uncomfortable, James offered privately, surprising Olivia with his consideration. I'm fine, she responded professionally. Let's just complete the exercise. The simulation began in a darkened section of the hospital's unused wing. James moved with calculated precision, communicating through hand signals that Olivia struggled to interpret. Her hesitation became evident when the victim was revealed, a mannequin trapped beneath debris with simulated arterial bleeding. You need to move faster, James instructed as Olivia carefully assessed the mannequin. In real situations, you don't have time for textbook assessment. And rushing leads to missed injuries, she countered, methodically checking for additional trauma sites. This patient has a potential spinal injury. Moving incorrectly could cause permanent paralysis. Their approaches clashed fundamentally, James prioritizing rapid extraction, Olivia insisting on proper medical protocol. The tension built until the exercise controller announced their simulated patient had died due to blood loss, while they debated the best approach. This isn't working, James stated afterward. We need to find middle ground. During their second attempt, James noticed Olivia's hands trembling slightly when the lights dimmed for the scenario. Recognition flickered through his mind. He'd seen this reaction in officers after traumatic incidents. Instead of pushing her as he might have done with his team, he modified his approach, describing each movement before executing it, creating predictability in the chaos. Moving left to check the doorway, he stated quietly. Then we'll approach from the south side of the room, 2 meters to potential cover. Olivia, meanwhile, observed James's interaction with a young medical resident, who became overwhelmed during a particularly intense scenario. Rather than criticism, James offered quiet reassurance, the same tone she'd heard him use with Emma. The disconnect between her assumption of him and this evidence of patience confused her. As they progressed through increasingly difficult scenarios, they developed an unexpected rhythm. James began trusting Olivia's medical judgment, while she learned to incorporate his tactical awareness. They communicated more effectively with each exercise, anticipating each other's movements. During a brief break, Emma appeared with James's assistant, who'd been watching her after school. The girl's face brightened upon seeing Olivia among the medical personnel. Dr. Pierce, Dad, this is the doctor who fixed my head, Emma exclaimed, pointing to the nearly healed cut on her forehead. We've been reacquainted, James said with a hint of amusement. Olivia knelt to Emma's level, examining the healing wound. Looks perfect. Have you been taking good care of your dad, too? Making sure he doesn't pull his stitches? Emma listens. Emma sighed dramatically, causing both adults to smile, their first moment of shared understanding. As Emma chatted about her science project on the circulatory system, Olivia glimpsed a different James. The father whose eyes softened, whose attention never wavered from his daughter, despite the chaos of the training environment. She noticed his watch alarm, discreetly set to Emma's school dismissal time, the small notebook where he recorded her comments about an upcoming school event. James, observing Olivia with Emma, saw beyond the efficient surgeon to someone who genuinely connected with his daughter, remembering details from their brief emergency room encounter weeks earlier. The training day concluded with a final scenario where they successfully saved their patient, their contrasting approaches now complementary rather than conflicting. A reluctant respect had formed, though neither acknowledged it directly. Over the following weeks, their paths crossed unexpectedly. James brought Emma for her final checkup, scheduled during Olivia's shift. A coincidence Olivia suspected might be deliberate, though she didn't mind. After the appointment, Emma insisted on showing Olivia her science fair medal. The pride in James's eyes caught Olivia off guard. There was nothing performative in his fatherhood, nothing designed to impress others. This was simply who he was. She recreated blood circulation through a mechanical model, he explained as Emma described her project. Your influence, apparently. Future surgeon? Olivia asked, genuinely impressed with Emma's detailed understanding. Future something amazing, James responded, the absence of expectation in his voice. Allowing Emma her own path rather than imposing one, struck Olivia, who had grown up with precisely mapped parental expectations for her medical career. Later that week, Olivia treated a police officer with minor injuries from a domestic violence call. James arrived to check on his colleague, nodding respectfully to Olivia across the busy emergency room. They exchanged no words, yet both registered the other's presence, an awareness neither acknowledged. Days later, Olivia exited the hospital after a grueling 18-hour shift to find her car battery dead in the staff parking lot. As she waited for roadside assistance in the pre-dawn darkness, a familiar SUV pulled alongside. James rolled down his window. Car trouble? He asked, returning from a night operation, still in tactical pants and a department sweatshirt. Just a dead battery, she replied, too exhausted for pride. I have jumper cables, he offered simply. They worked together in comfortable silence, breath visible in the cold air. When the engine started, Olivia's customary self-sufficiency wavered momentarily. Thank you. Following doctor's orders, helping others, he responded with subtle humor that surprised her. These brief interactions accumulated like gentle rainfall, insignificant individually, yet collectively changing the landscape between them. Olivia found herself noting the days James brought Emma for physical therapy appointments for a minor sports injury. James discovered which coffee shop near the hospital made Olivia's preferred lavender latte. One evening, Emma's physical therapist canceled last minute. James sat with Emma in the hospital cafeteria, reviewing options, when Olivia passed by with her dinner tray. Emma waved her over enthusiastically. Is everything okay? Olivia asked, noticing their scheduled therapy time had passed. James explained the cancellation, and Emma's disappointment about missing a promised strengthening exercise for her recovering ankle. I have 30 minutes, Olivia offered impulsively. Not physical therapy, but I could show you some anatomy models in the education wing if you're interested. Emma's excitement made refusal impossible. They spent half an hour examining anatomical models, Olivia patiently answering Emma's endless questions, while James observed their interaction, struck by Olivia's natural ability to explain complex concepts at a child's level, without condescension. Walking them out afterward, Olivia mentioned casually, there's a medical explorer program for kids Emma's age on Saturdays. Very hands-on, lots of models and simple experiments. Sounds perfect for her, James responded. I volunteer there twice monthly, Olivia added, then quickly clarified. Just so you know, she'd see a familiar face. The invitation hung between them, professional yet personal, offering connection without pressure. James recognized it for the careful opening it represented. We'll check our calendar, he promised, though both knew Emma's enthusiasm made attendance inevitable. At the first Saturday program, James watched from the parents' area as Olivia guided Emma and other children through creating pulse monitors from simple materials. Her patience, expertise, and genuine delight in their discoveries revealed layers beyond the efficient surgeon he first encountered. Afterward, Emma chatted excitedly about blood pressure and pulse rates, while James and Olivia walked toward the parking lot. Thank you for this, he said quietly. She hasn't been this excited about anything since, Olivia prompted, when he didn't continue. It's before her mother died, he finished simply. The admission, his first direct reference to his loss, sat between them, significant in its vulnerability. Olivia didn't offer platitudes, just a nod of understanding that James appreciated more than words. Coffee? He suggested impulsively. Emma's having dinner at a friend's house. Olivia hesitated briefly before nodding. I know a place nearby. At the cafe, conversation flowed surprisingly easily, focusing initially on Emma, but gradually revealing small personal details. James mentioned his Midwest upbringing. Olivia shared her love of classical music. Neither discussed their deeper wounds, yet both sensed the careful foundation being constructed, trust building incrementally through these ordinary moments. A Tuesday morning in November brought early snow and multiple trauma cases to Boston Memorial. Olivia performed back-to-back surgeries until mid-afternoon when a critical case arrived. Multiple gunshot wounds, massive internal bleeding. The emergency department moved with practiced urgency, preparing the operating room while Olivia reviewed the incoming patient's vital signs. She worked methodically, hands steadied despite the patient's deteriorating vitals, when a nurse mentioned, SWAT commander, caught in crossfire during hostage extraction. Olivia's focus narrowed to the surgical field, refusing to acknowledge the familiar watch on the patient's wrist until she had stabilized the bleeding and closed the most critical wounds. Only when the immediate danger passed did she allow herself to look at the patient's face. James, pale and unconscious beneath the harsh operating lights. H cardiothoracic, she ordered, voice betraying nothing as she continued working. And someone contact family services. There's a daughter, Emma Harrington, 7 years old. Hours later, Olivia sat beside Emma in the surgical waiting area, having arranged for another surgeon to take over once James was stabilized. Hospital policy prohibited operating on personal connections, a rule Olivia had sidestepped by not acknowledging her relationship to James until the critical phase ended. Is my dad going to die like Mom did? Emma asked quietly, her small hand clutching Olivia's. Your dad is very strong, Olivia answered carefully. The doctors are doing everything possible. But sometimes that's not enough, Emma responded with a child's terrible clarity. That's what happened with Mom. The raw truth of this statement, the inadequacy of medicine against certain outcomes, struck Olivia professionally and personally. She made a decision against hospital protocol. Let me show you something, she said, leading Emma to a private consultation room with medical imaging equipment. She pulled up James's latest scans, explaining in simple terms. See this? This is your dad's heart. It's strong and steady. Emma studied the images intently. What are those dark spots? That's where the bullets cause damage, Olivia explained honestly. But see how the blood is still flowing around them? Your dad's body is already working to heal. This concrete visual provided Emma something tangible to understand, more reassuring than vague assurances. When Emma finally fell asleep in the waiting area, Olivia retreated to an empty stairwell, the professional composure crumbling as memories surfaced. A flashback overtook her. Glass shattering, screams, a strong arm pulling her beneath a desk as gunfire erupted in the University Medical Center where she'd been a first-year resident. A hostage situation, domestic terrorism targeting medical researchers. Hours hiding, her arm bleeding from flying debris, a tactical officer shielding her with his body when the gunman discovered their location. She never saw his face clearly in the chaos, only remembered the calm voice instructing her to apply pressure to her wound. The protective embrace as the building shook with an explosion, then unconsciousness. She woke in the hospital, told she had been carried out by a SWAT officer who'd returned to help others despite his own injuries. The coincidence seemed impossible, yet pieces aligned. James's recognition during their first meeting that she'd dismissed, his measured response to her panic during the emergency training, the scar on his side that matched the reported injury of her rescuer. The realization left her breathless. The stranger who saved her life years ago now lay fighting for his own under her surgical care. The cosmic symmetry felt too orchestrated, too vulnerable to acknowledge. When James regained consciousness the next morning, Olivia had composed herself, presenting his medical information professionally despite having operated outside protocol. She expected questions about his condition, preparation for recovery. Instead, his first words, Emma? With your sister, Olivia reported. She stayed here until you were stable. Thank you, he managed, voice rough from intubation. Then, studying her face, it was you, wasn't it? The medical resident at Boston University, 2016? The direct question, acknowledging what she'd suspected, left nowhere to hide. How long have you known? Since the emergency training, he admitted. The way you reacted to the simulation lighting. I wasn't certain until now. The unspoken connection between them, this shared trauma, hung in the air. For years, Olivia had compartmentalized that day, refusing to acknowledge how it shaped her career choices, her caution with relationships, her need for control. I never thanked you, she said finally. No need, he responded, attempting to sit up and wincing. Professional duty. Like my saving you was just professional duty? She challenged, surprising herself with the emotion breaking through. James looked away. You have a life, a career. I didn't want to intrude with old traumas. His consideration, protecting her from painful memories rather than claiming recognition, revealed the depth of his character. But it also exposed the pattern both had followed, assuming responsibility for others' emotional well-being while denying their own needs. Emma needs you, Olivia said, redirecting to safer ground. You have extensive recovery ahead. I'm familiar with the process, he responded grimly. You can't handle this alone, she insisted, medical authority returning. Emma needs stability while you recover. We'll manage, he stated with the same stubborn self-reliance she once criticized. Olivia recognized the defense mechanism, his fear of dependence mirroring her own. The parallel wounds they carried suddenly clear, both protecting themselves from vulnerability, both experts at caring for others while rejecting support for themselves. She left his room with professional composure, but the walls she'd maintained between her trauma and present life had fractured irreparably. 2 weeks into James's recovery, tensions escalated. Despite medical advice, he pushed his rehabilitation aggressively, determined to return to normal functioning for Emma's sake. Olivia, monitoring his case despite colleagues' raised eyebrows, confronted him after finding him attempting weight-bearing exercises far beyond current recommendations. And his exercises remained in general excess of everyday life, whether regular. You're risking re-injury, she stated flatly. I need to get home. Emma needs normalcy, he countered, jaw tight with pain he refused to acknowledge. What Emma needs is a father who doesn't collapse from pushing too hard, Olivia responded, frustration evident. Accept help for once. Like you do, he challenged unexpectedly. When was the last time you let anyone help you, Dr. Pierce? The question struck too close to home, triggering Olivia's own defenses. Their shared stubbornness created an impasse, each recognizing the other's self-protective patterns yet unwilling to address their own. Later that evening, Olivia received an emergency paid James. James had checked himself out against medical advice. She found him in the hospital lobby, unsteady but determined, arguing with administration about discharged paperwork. This is ridiculous, she intervened, professional mask firmly in place. You're risking your recovery. Emma's nightmares are getting worse, he explained quietly, the vulnerability in his voice stopping her prepared lecture. She needs to see me at home, not in a hospital bed. For the first time, Olivia truly saw the impossible balance he was attempting, protecting his daughter's emotional health while managing his physical recovery. The conflict between medical protocol and human reality had no perfect solution. Wait here, she instructed, disappearing to make calls. She returned 30 minutes later. I've arranged home health visits, equipment delivery tomorrow morning, and pulled some strings for priority physical therapy at home. She hesitated before adding, and I've taken emergency family leave for 2 weeks. James looked up, confused. Why would you? Because you need medical supervision and Emma needs you home, Olivia stated practically, though both recognized this crossed professional boundaries. I can monitor your recovery while you provide Emma the stability she needs. I can't ask that of you, he responded, though the relief in his expression was evident. You didn't ask. I offered, she countered. Professional courtesy. They both recognized the justification for what it was, a safe explanation for a decision based on deeper connections neither was ready to verbalize. The arrangement began awkwardly, Olivia sleeping in the guest room, maintaining clinical distance during daily wound checks and medication management. Emma, however, blossomed with the combined presence of her father and Olivia, the household finding an unexpected rhythm. A week into this arrangement, James found Olivia in the kitchen late at night, staring out the window, tension evident in her posture. "Nightmare?" he asked quietly, recognizing the signs. She startled, embarrassed to be caught vulnerable. "Just checking medication timing." Olivia," he said, the first time he'd used her first name. "You don't have to be Dr. Pierce here." The gentle permission to exist without professional armor broke something loose. "I still dream about it sometimes," she admitted. "The shooting, not being able to help anyone. Is that why you became a trauma surgeon, to never feel helpless again?" The insight, so accurate, left her momentarily speechless. "Is that why you stayed with SWAT after Emma was born? To control the chaos?" Their mutual recognition of parallel coping mechanisms, of armor constructed against similar fears, created a moment of rare honesty. "I'm leaving tomorrow," Olivia announced suddenly. "You're stable enough for regular home health visits. Emma's more settled." James studied her, understanding the retreat. "Running is easier than staying," he observed quietly. "I did the same after Lisa died. Threw myself into work, avoided anything that felt like building something new." "I'm not running," she defended automatically. "Aren't you?" he challenged gently. "What are you afraid will happen if you stay?" The question hung between them, direct yet compassionate. Olivia looked away, unable to articulate the fear of connection, of potential loss, of allowing someone past her carefully constructed defenses. "You saved my life. Twice," James said finally. "In the operating room, and by being here for Emma when I couldn't be. At least let me thank you properly before you disappear." "I was just doing my job," she echoed his earlier dismissal. "No," he responded with quiet certainty. "You weren't. And we both know it." 3 days after Olivia returned to her apartment, emptiness greeted her. The same clean, impersonal space, now feeling noticeably hollow after weeks in James and Emma's home, filled with drawings, photographs, and evidence of life being lived. She resumed her shifts, efficient as always, yet colleagues noticed a subtle difference. Moments of distraction, checking her phone between surgeries, declining extra shifts she would previously have accepted without question. At home, she stood before her bare walls, finally unpacking photographs long stored in boxes. Her medical school graduation, hiking trips with friends, moments she'd kept compartmentalized from her daily existence. She hung them carefully, acknowledging the need for visible reminders of connection. 2 weeks passed before Emma's handmade card arrived in her hospital mailbox, a carefully drawn heart monitor line forming the words, "We miss you," with Emma's signature and a small handprint. No pressure, no expectations, just acknowledgement of absence. Olivia traced the handprint, remembering Emma's resilience, James's quiet strength. She'd spent years believing safety came from control, from maintaining distance. Yet her time in their home revealed something unexpected. Vulnerability creating its own kind of strength. That evening she drove to their neighborhood, sitting in her car outside their house for several minutes before finally approaching the door. Emma answered, delight spreading across her face. "Dad, Dr. Olivia is here." James appeared in the hallway, surprise evident but quickly replaced with warm welcome. "This is unexpected." "I was just," Olivia began, then redirected honestly. "I missed you both." The simple admission, 3 words acknowledging connection rather than duty, shifted something fundamental between them. "We were just about to have dinner," James offered. "Nothing fancy, but there's plenty." "I'd like that," Olivia responded, stepping inside. The evening unfolded naturally. Emma chattering about school, James moving with increasing strength around the kitchen, Olivia gradually relaxing into their shared space. After Emma's bedtime, they sat in comfortable silence on the porch, watching snow begin to fall. "I've been thinking about what you asked," Olivia said finally. "About what I'm afraid would happen if I stayed." James waited, giving her space to continue. "I'm afraid of building something that could break," she admitted. "My work makes sense. I can see the damage, repair it, measure recovery. Relationships don't come with surgical protocols." "No," he agreed. "They don't. They're messier, less predictable." Like raising a child, she suggested. Exactly like that, he smiled slightly. You adapt constantly, improvise, hope you're getting it mostly right. Olivia considered this, the courage required to proceed without guarantees, to build despite knowing loss remains possible. I'm not very good at improvising. You saved my life without a complete surgical plan, he reminded her. You adapted. The parallel wasn't lost on her. Professional confidence versus personal caution. I'm not sure I know how to do this, she admitted. Neither do I, James responded honestly, but I'd like to find out. He reached for her hand, a simple gesture bridging the careful distance they'd maintained. Olivia's fingers intertwined with his. Not a dramatic declaration, but a quiet decision to try, to risk connection despite uncertainty. When she left that evening, it was with plans to return for Sunday dinner, a small beginning, a gentle step towards something neither could perfectly control, yet both now recognized was worth the risk. Emma watched from her window as Olivia drove away, smiling at the small origami heart her father had placed in Olivia's coat pocket when she wasn't looking. His own quiet symbol of beginning again.